Hello and welcome to The Agenda here on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes and I'm joined, as always, by Phil Moorhouse with a different bias. How you doing, Phil?
Afternoon. I'm all right.
Yeah? Good.
Yes.
I'm going to give a big shout out to Gallifreyan Wren in the chat, also Diz with his spanner, and we've got Matthew G, we've got Sean Streeter as well, Billy Kershaw's in there, we've got Asperger's Europe, Katrina Bryce. If you'd like to join these wonderful people in the chat, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button, wait for a minute, and I'm on 199 new subscribers in the last month. So just one more subscriber and we'll
That's not bad.
Hit 200 for the month, which is exciting. So, Phil, this week we're going to be talking about these trade deals, two of them. We've got the India trade deal.
3 by the end of this month.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, we've got the US trade deal, which I'm going to put in inverted commas because it's not a trade deal. It's
well,
not
no,
like a
it
trade
is. It can be.
Yeah.
Right. So the distinction is, just to be clear. So this is what trade experts say. Like Urbits like us will just say trade deal or trade agreement as if it means the same thing.
Yeah.
A trade agreement technically is the big one. So this isn't a trade agreement. It is anything you agree on trade is a trade deal.
Is it not
It's
an
a
agreement?
weak one.
What if you agree
No.
on something on trade? It's not an agreement.
So an
You
agreement
see what you're
is a
doing
big
here,
one.
Phil?
It's not my fault. This is trade experts. They decide their own terms.
Yeah.
That's fine. In physics, we have terms as well. Like people say weight when they mean mass. But you let it slide. You let it slide. But if there's going to be a distinction, trade agreements are the big ones.
Yeah.
Trade deals are ones that are very limited.
Right.
And it is an agreement on trade. I mean,
Yeah.
tariffs affect trade. So it's a deal. It's not an agreement.
Will the
And there isn't agreement, actually. So you're wrong. Because they're not agreeing. Because Trump thinks we should buy the poison chicken.
I know.
And we disagree.
Yes. We haven't even agreed on it. But no, so we've got these two deals this week, one with India, which is significant, and we'll get to that, and one with America. Will the one in a couple of weeks' time with the EU, is that going to be a trade agreement or is that going to be a trade deal?
I don't know. Depends what's announced. I strongly suspect the only thing that will be announced as in ready to sign is the defence thing, which is a deal, really.
Yeah.
Because that's access to a scheme that the EU are running.
Yeah.
But we're hoping that there will be some positive talk about the Agrifood deal. I mean, in terms of trade agreement, we have a trade agreement with the EU called the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. So technically, anything that would qualify as a trade agreement will be a reworking of that. And the discussions for that are set to begin next year. So we won't get, I suppose, from that point of view, you won't get a trade agreement with the EU until next year or the year after. But we can, this agri-food thing will, I mean, that's worth, I mean, this is why, you know, you can be suspicious about things we might agree with America. The food standards was never, ever a threat because we need to align those food standards with the EU in order to get our agri-food deal. The purpose of which, remember, is to reduce checks because while we're outside the single market and the customs union, we're always going to need the paperwork. The paperwork has to be there. That can't go away while we're outside. So it's about reducing the checks, which is, it creates delays. It makes it more difficult to buy and sell fresh food, for example. And it also creates choke points at the ports,
and
which means
why our food's going off much quicker than it used to.
Yes, and why we can't get medicines. Like there's so many medicines that are just at any one time completely unavailable. And I know people, you may know people as well, who sometimes have to go around multiple pharmacies trying to get their prescription fulfilled.
Well, I do have a friend who suffers from cystic fibrosis, and to get her medicine, she's got friends all over the country, and she goes on the Boots app, which actually has stocks on it, and when it gets flagged up that there is her medicine in stock, wherever we are in the country, we will go to that boot store and get the medicine for her.
Mad needing to do that.
And she needs that to stay alive. This isn't just like a nice to have, you know, like headache pills or Viagra or something. This is like something that, like, if she doesn't get it, Phil, she'll die. End of. So yeah, it's maddening that we are in this situation that the Tories and refuck put us in. And let's never forget that. They're moaning about these trade deals now. So can we talk about India for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
First of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Kev C, for joining the channel. So welcome new members. I know that's a plural, but never mind. And also want to make a shout out to Sfax and Tim That and Chris C in the chat there. Colin says, this isn't much of a deal. US financial commentary says minor changes. Yeah, it is. It is. Well, let's talk about the Indian trade deal. Now, what's interesting about this is most countries around the world do loads of trade deals with everyone that they can get a trade deal with. India is different in that regard. It is the biggest. It's the biggest economy that doesn't have any trade deals with anyone. It doesn't get on with its neighbours. Sri Lanka,
bloody well
Pakistan,
doesn't at the moment.
India, Nepal, Bhutan. You mentioned it. They don't get on. They don't get on well with their neighbours.
You've just listed India in that list, so India don't get on with itself.
Yes.
Which actually is probably quite true.
So getting that deal over the line, even though it's not that big a deal, in more ways than one, it is quite remarkable. And I do have to give Starmer and his team, begrudging respect for managing to get it through.
What I would say, if I was going to be playing devil's advocate here, is I strongly suspect that as a result of Trump's global trade tariff policy, it is going to encourage a lot of countries to do deals like this with each other. So it may well be that it may well be that if we imagine a parallel universe where Trump wasn't a fucking idiot or Harris won the election, that maybe we wouldn't have got this deal with India at this point, even though it is quite limited. So it may be that we are just going to see over the next year or so, lots of countries doing little deals like this. Because like if they add up, like this deal for us, like in 15 years, it's worth 0.1% to GDP. Okay, wow. And that's been hailed as the biggest post-Brexit trade deal yet.
It was 0.01%.
No, it's not that bad.
Okay.
That'd be worthless.
Because I was like, oh my God,
even the New Zealand deal is 0.03. Okay. So it's 0.1, but that's still, you've got to balance that with the fact that leaving the EU in the way we did, and we did get a deal. It wasn't a no-deal Brexit.
Yeah,
we did get a deal. Is believed by the very people who forecast, or our official economic forecasters, the OBR, to have reduced our GDP over the long term by 4%. So Brexit has caused a hit of 4%. In return, we've had a trade deal with New Zealand, which is worth 0.0, and this is all after 15 years. Brexit hit us immediately. The effect was immediate. And for the long term, whereas New Zealand in about 15, by about 20, all of these are based around like 2035 to 2040. New Zealand is worth a boost of 0.03%, Australia 0.07%, 0.08%, Japan 0.07%, India 0.1%. And then some people will point out, Mexico and South, all of these are even to two decimal places, 0%.
Yeah.
The Mexico and South Korea and Singapore. Someone tried to say to me, what about the Singapore deal, Phil? It's worth like 14 billion.
Yeah. 14
billion a year. That's not showing up on the Richter scale at all.
No.
No.
So, but this is the situation.
It's not adding up.
Yeah, this is the situation they've put us in. But then Farage and his mates start screaming when we got the Indian deal. Like, this is going to allow Indians to work here tax-free, which isn't the case.
No.
And the way they've put this across is so xenophobic, because this is a standard thing in trade deals all over the world. And what India wanted, and what India has wanted for a long time, and what's held up the India-EU deal for many years, the British were holding this up more than anything, was because they wanted to expand the number of Indians who could come here on a visa. Come here as in Europe on a visa. And Britain really stood against that. And also one of the other, bones of contention with getting the trade deal when we were part of the EU was the fact that India charges a 500% tariff on Scotch whisky, which is a huge amount of our export market, food and drink export market. And we wanted to get rid of that. And they were like, well, we'll get rid of it, but then you've got to allow more Indians to be able to get visas to work in the UK. And Britain has managed to get this deal through. They've reduced the tariffs on Scotch whisky, and they haven't offered loads more visas and
Any more
and
visas?
loads any more at all. And actually, Labour are getting immigration figures down, which I don't think is a good thing. I think we need more immigration.
Well, I
But
think they should split it up into types, because I think
yeah,
even the anti-immigration crowd, it's like, are they worried about university students? I don't think they are. The people, I mean, I talk to like some people who are anti-immigration. I live amongst them, right? We've just voted Andrea Jenkins by a stunning country mile. I actually, when I went to the polling station, I actually said to my wife and my stepdaughter, I'm going to judge every old person that comes out of that polling station because I know who they've just voted for.
oh, okay, Phil. Before we go on, let me just say, not all boomers. Okay?
Round here, they
Just,
do.
but not all boomers. Just yeah,
Not
go on.
all, but
Sorry, before we go on
there's
as well, one angry pagan, thank you very much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. So you were voting for Andrea Jenkins, were you?
I wasn't. I did have to vote for the Conservative though, because I was voted tactically.
Oh my
you see.
God, you did a Wayne.
The first ever.
You did a Wayne.
Did I? Well,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I mean, you know, if you in a first past the post system, tactical voting is how you avoid getting the worst option. It's really that simple. And a Reform UK mayor is worse than the Conservative mayor.
Yeah.
Absolutely simple. It didn't make any difference. It wasn't even close. Reform UK walked it.
Yeah.
But I also knew that the Labour candidate had absolutely zero chance. And they were miles behind even the Conservative. The Conservative candidate was miles behind Reform UK, but Labour were absolutely miles behind the Conservative candidate.
Yeah.
And I knew that. I knew that would be the case. So there it is.
But the India trade deal, I mean, if this was the Tories who had done it after Brexit, it would have been trumpeted. What they would have done is said, oh my God, this is a $3.5 trillion trade deal with India.
Would, yeah.
Because what they would have done is just taken the GDP of India and gone, that's how much the trade deal is worth. Which is
just
what
like
they
with
did with the
CPTPP.
Trans-Pacific Partnership. They just went, we'll just add up all of the GDP for all of these countries. Oh my God, Phil, this deal is worth $12.5 trillion. And you're like, no, it's not. It's just not. But I mean, it's a good thing. But I think that I don't think you're going to disagree with me on this. But I think that the Indian deal and the American deal this week are going to just pale into insignificance if we can get a decent deal with the EU in a couple of weeks' time.
So it was forecast. Now it's very difficult to forecast what any sort of EU deal is worth because there are no details. So you're always imagining what sort of deal we might get. But Best for Britain commissioned some research.
Yeah.
And I think they worked out if we had very deep alignment, not single market, not during the single market, not during the customs union, just very deep alignment with the EU on standards on pretty much everything we trade, it could lead to something like a 1.7% boost to GDP. So you're thinking, and that's not in the, that's absolutely meeting all of Labour's red lines. That would be no freedom of movement, no single market, which requires that as one of their 4 freedoms anyway, no customs union, no joining the EU, just very deep alignment.
Yeah.
At the moment, we're likely just to align on agri-food products, but you know, there's scope for more later. Could be worth 1.7. Obviously, depends on detail. But and I just have to say, Labour aren't talking about that deep alignment at the moment. They're just talking about alignment on things a bit at a time. And then you think, so against that, first of all, the American trade deal, although it's in isolation a good thing because it has saved jobs, and we haven't conceded anything other than tariffs, as far as I can tell. We haven't. So, I mean, and tariffs as well. Like, I'm not a fan of tariffs, so it doesn't, you know, I don't care about that. Standards are the most important. For me, the worthwhile trade. Tariffs are something like, there's almost no sensible use of tariffs. Like, if you want to apply economic sanctions to a country, you just block all imports from them.
Yeah.
So anyway, we haven't conceded anything substantial, is my point. But nonetheless, it's still net negative. If you were to take as a baseline our trade with various countries as of the 1st of January 2025, the India trade deal is worth, or it will be over 15 years, worth plus 0.1%. The EU deal, even without being in the single market and customs union, could be worth plus 1.7%.
Yeah.
The American trade deal is negative. We don't know by how much, but Starmer basically confirmed that in questioning yesterday.
Yes. So
It's
it's just not as, but it's not as bad as it would be if we didn't
yes,
have
exactly.
this so-called
It's better
deal.
than it was last week. It's not as good as it was before he became president again.
Do you agree with commentators saying this is blackmail? This is just, we've been forced into this situation.
So yes and no. Yes, in that. So first of all, we were before the tariffs ever appeared, we were trying to negotiate this sort of deal anyway.
Yeah.
However, and it hasn't like hastened anything.
Yeah.
So in a way, I can see how it will look, but we were trying to get this sort of trade deal anyway. In fact, we were actually trying to get a trade deal that also included tech, which is still to be discussed. But at the same time, the bottom line is America's trade with us will be better compared to January 2025, and ours will be worse. But at the same time, what was there to be done about it? We were supposed to sacrifice a load of jobs in the car industry and give not only those people, because that's actual living, breathing people who would lose their jobs, but give Nigel Farage more votes.
Yeah.
So, but it is. I mean, but again, what this should be, what people should be saying about this, if they're aggrieved by these tactics, what they should be noticing is that Trump is wanting to move the world into a position where might makes right. And we've decided to be on our own when we should be part of the EU, which is one of the 3 mightiest markets in the world.
Well, exactly. And we've got nothing. We've got nothing against, I've got lots against Trump. I mean, we've got nothing to fight. We've got no tools in our armory, really, except flattery, feeding his ego, which I think Starmer does a really good job of. I mean, he must hate it on a personal level.
And people are going,
giving him an invite to come and meet the king, and then this time, no, it's okay, because what you'll do is we'll do a big thing where you phone me, and we'll do it over the phone, and it can be like something from The Apprentice. It'll be great for TV. And you'll be able to say, wow, to your American fan base. You'll be able to say, hey, look at this amazing deal that I've done with the United Kingdom, a very respected country, country. Feed his ego. But what Britain has got out of this is like you say, it's a net negative, but it's not as bad as it would have been had it been left as it was. And let's get into this as well, because I've seen a lot of left-wing commentators, no offense to people watching this, but they're going, oh my God, we're going to have chlorinated chicken and hormone-injected beef. But we're not. This is not part of the deal, which still hasn't been signed, by the way. This deal hasn't been signed. So Trump might change his mind again, who knows. But as far as that's concerned, that's going to happen. The 2% tax on digital services, such as Facebook and Twitter and on this YouTube, is staying in place. So that's not been gotten rid of, and the concessions on the British side haven't been that.
The digital tax thing. That is still a bargaining chip, and the thing is as well. So from that point of view, there's 2 ways of looking at it. The first way is the principle. You'd be talking about some of the wealthiest corporations in the world. Who are, this digital services tax is worth what about? It's an average. I know it's an average. Some pay a bit more, but it's an average of about 2%. It's a bit bollocks, really, isn't it?
No, because that's a few million for the exchequer, though.
Yeah, so it adds up to about $1 billion. Now, but at the end, so there is the way of looking at it is if we do provide a carve out, it's a way of giving the wealthiest corporations like a tax break, which obviously doesn't sit right with a lot of us.
Yes.
At the same time, from my point of view, it is just money. And if in return for that carve out, we get more money worth of trade and more jobs, because all it is at the moment, the digital services tax, it doesn't give a competitive advantage to anyone. It doesn't give a competitive. It's not a way of helping smaller tech companies because it's nothing for those big tech companies to pay out. It's pathetic. So it doesn't do anything.
So you see it as like a nice to have rather than a.
I see it as purely all it is tax revenue. It doesn't do anything beyond that. It's just tax revenue. So if you can do something that also generates jobs and provides the same tax revenues in
Yeah.
return in some other sector, then we haven't lost anything other than it doesn't sit right that wealthy corporations get out of even more tax.
Yeah, absolutely. Maggie Pie, thank you so much for the 20 Swedish krona. EU citizens faced some unhinged xenophobia, though. Absolutely, they did. Really absolutely disgraceful what happened during the Brexit wars and how people were treated. SG, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. But the question: how the US deal impacts how does the US deal impact the EU negotiations? So there's nothing in here at the moment, and things might change. I don't know, but there's nothing in here at the moment that's going to jeopardize our future trade deals with the EU. The one thing that could have disrupted it if we were taking in hormone-injected beef and chlorinated chicken, which is not allowed in the EU. If we were giving America a quota of 22,000 tons of that they could bring into the British market, that would make it very difficult for us to be selling food and stuff like that to Europe. I mean, they could put a block on. They could say, yeah, you can trade this particular food commodity, but you can't trade this food commodity. And they've done that in the past with beef from this country because of foot and mouth disease and BSE. So it can be done, but it's very unlikely that they'll be like, you've got lower food standards.
Yeah. What we're trying to do, remember, is we're not trying to increase quotas with the EU because we don't have any. We're not trying to reduce tariffs because as long as it's British produce, there aren't any anyway. What we're trying to do is reduce checks. Checks are there to make sure that substandard produce doesn't enter your market. Yeah. So you cannot ask the EU to reduce those checks if we reduce our standards. We have to align our standards, and that is known. Labour are at the moment passing legislation to align those standards. So Labour are fully focused on this. They know it. Like the biggest worries, what we might do with America is not the food standards. Yeah. The biggest worries are around online safety laws, because Trump is pushing quite hard on that as well. Oh, you're attacking freedom of speech. No, we're just attacking people's freedom to hurt others.
Yeah. One Angry Paying makes a great point here. Our geopolitical position is really weak and it has been for years. Expecting Starmer to behave like Carney is unrealistic, purely down to Brexit. Yeah, absolutely. If we were part of the EU, the cancel culture that stops our politicians from speaking out against Trump wouldn't be there. They could speak out against him. And
I would still say it's probably best not to for Ukraine's sake, because that has worked.
Yeah, clearly. But this idea that he's going to do a Hugh Grant in Love Actually, it's not going to happen. I wouldn't do that. I mean, any sensible leader of this country would not do that, as much as we would like them to, because if we knack of our own economy because America's got a big hold over us, it means that people lose their jobs, people lose their livelihoods, they'll lose their homes, families will break up, there'll be kids out on the streets as a result of whatever Trump does to us. So, look, we're in this position, whether you like it or not. I don't particularly like it at all. I don't believe anyone in this country particularly likes the position that we've put ourselves in.
Well, some people voted to do it. So,
they voted to do it. They voted to impose economic sanctions on ourselves at the behest of the Russians, weirdly. But I wouldn't be. If I was Starmer right now, I'll be doing pretty much what he's doing in this respect. I wouldn't be doing what he's doing in respect to trans rights or voting or the Levinson too. That'll be a completely different kettle of fish. But when it comes to diplomacy, and we get this with Israel as well, why isn't he telling Netanyahu to piss off? And
I mean, this is the thing.
What good will that do?
Well, I'll tell you something that's happened in the last week that's not been discussed in the Tanking News. So the government have instructed government lawyers. Government lawyers in the last week have been in the International Court of Justice arguing that Israel should be charged with crimes against humanity.
Wow.
So Britain is in an international court arguing that Israel is breaking international law. But people just look at what he's saying like to the public, but that's just political rhetoric. In terms of what we're actually doing is we are making the case that he is committing crimes against humanity against the people in Gaza.
Yeah.
That is what's actually happening in court. That is a matter of public record.
Yeah.
But they don't discuss that in Tanking News, as I say. It's they flew a plane. They must be doing reconnaissance for Israel.
Yeah. So Tim Nat says, my cues were about food standards and who will do the checks on US factories to ensure standards we might be talking about different points.
They already do
assume,
those.
yeah,
Like they've only reduced tariffs on things we can already import from America. Like the other thing to point out is not all American food is shit, because America's a rich country. It has rich people. Do you think rich people want to eat the poison food? No, that's for poor people. And I know Trump eats shit food as well, but he's weird. He's a guy who puts ketchup on his steaks, for goodness sake, which is fine. Do your own thing. But he's not normal. Trump is not a normal rich guy, right? He's a weird one. But most people in America, like if they've got the money for it, they want good quality food. So they also produce good quality food. That's what we can already import. It will just now be cheaper. But there's quotas as well. I mean, it's not like there's the floodgates have opened up. There are, just like there are quotas on our stuff with this deal. For example, the reduction in tariffs on cars is for 100,000 units.
Yeah.
There are also quotas for the American stuff where we've reduced tariffs.
So I think that with Starmer, I mean, Brett Wall's saying Starmer's Tory light, spongy spine flip flop, which is fair enough. But what I find the most frustrating thing about the man is he gets some things absolutely dead on, and we can sit here and we can explain exactly why he's done that thing. But other stuff, it just seems absolutely inexplicable because it seems to be working into Farage's and Refuck's hands completely. And I know we've done comms to death on this channel, but this week there was a big announcement yesterday between Trump and Starmer, and they set up this big press event, and they gave the journalists the wrong address.
Yeah.
They gave them somewhere that was like 45 minutes away. Driving, it was 3 hours away on public transport. I just, Phil, what will it take before? Who is it in Labour that needs to go? Oh, hang on.
Well, the Prime Minister, because these are 10 Downing Street staff, so it's his job. Like, he needs to, like, there's been signs that they've recognised where they're not doing well enough and have changed people. They have changed people, but nothing's improved. Nothing's getting better at all.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, there was a sense in which you could understand it last year when they first came to power, because remember what's supposed to happen as you go up to a general election, the government are supposed to allow senior members of the opposition to meet with civil servants and discuss their ideas. Because remember, unlike in America, where you have your election, then 2 months later, in fact, more than 2 months later, the government changes. In this country, it changes the next day. You have your election one day, and then the new government's in place by lunchtime the following day. So as soon as the count is in, within an hour, probably the government has changed, and that's it. It's all changed. So you're supposed to go in so that you can talk to civil servants about your plans, and they can sort of say what's practical, so that you can hit the ground running. Yeah. And Rishi Sunak blocked that. He did allow it eventually, but literally just a few weeks before the election. So Sunak acted completely against the national interest in so many ways. And so, you can understand them having a faltering start to begin with, because they really weren't ready, and there was no way of them being ready. But at this point, I mean, we're coming up to 10 months roughly. In fact, it's more than 10 months now, isn't it? So they really should be at least showing improvements. They should be showing improvements.
Yeah. Maggie Pie, thank you so much for the 50 Swedish krona. I think Lammy and Starmer should travel around Europe with 3 hugs from the UK signs just to apologise for the pain that Brexit has caused. Maggie, I think that Farage and Johnson should travel around the...
Who'd want to hug them?
They should travel around Europe and be putting stocks out, right. And Europeans can throw rotten fruit at them.
The problem is it's us that's got the rotten fruit, though.
Good point. But yeah, MZ says sack Labour's communication staff, get better ones in. They're just terrible at communicating the good stuff that they do, and then they keep doing.
I mean, for all I know, it's like 1 or 2 people that you need to change. I don't know. And it's easy to look at the person at the top and say, well, maybe that. I don't know. I really, because obviously we're not there.
They get the papers on side. Like, how daffy are they?
Well, They're
The,
not.
the Telegraph today was saying about the US trade deal was going to give the US power over our future dealings with China, saying
Well,
that
that's
they'll
fine.
have a veto over
Yeah,
Chinese investments. And then you read 2 paragraphs into the bloody
yeah, yeah.
headline, and it's
Oh,
like, that wasn't the case at all. And it's why they
no.
put the word veto in inverted commas.
Yeah, yeah. That's always a sign, by the way. I'll just tell people, if ever you see any term in a headline, inverted commas, it means they're quoting someone else,
Yeah.
and that someone else isn't necessarily an expert. It could just be some random backbench Tory MP.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know that it's not. Otherwise, they just say it themselves. They know that they're not on strong ground.
Yeah.
They quote.
Paul Ewan, thank you very much for the super chat. Assuming the presser address was a mistake. We are halfway through our target. If we get to 10, Phil and I will wibble on for a bit longer at the end if Phil's got the time to do that. Something else I want to move on to. Backbench rebellion brewing over disability cuts. So my MP, Mary Foy, has joined this letter of at least 42 Labour MPs who are like not happy with the direction that Labour's going in with their cuts to PIP. And they say that the planned disability cuts are impossible to support and have called for a pause and change in direction. There's going to be a vote on this next month. What's your take on this?
It's pathetic, 42. It's the thing is, like something like
you
this.
Think there should be more MPs kicking off?
If I was a Labour MP, I would make it absolutely clear that under no circumstances would I. In fact, I would vote against it. They wouldn't even persuade me to abstain, and I would say that not because I disagree with it. I think as a backbench MP, you become the candidate without ever seeing the manifesto. So it's implied that if you're going to stand for the party, you are going to have to support policies you disagree with, might maybe even strongly disagree with, and sometimes without even seeing it, because the manifesto doesn't even come out until the election campaign begins, at which point you've already been selected. But it's against the spirit of the manifesto. There's a certain expectation of Labour that the public have. And the public would never imagine a Labour government would reduce the incomes of people of like disability, any form of disability allowance. It's not something you would anticipate. Yeah. And if you read the manifesto, although it's not a clear breach of the manifesto, it is against the spirit of it, where you read the manifesto and what it said about helping disabled people. And we're not even talking about out of work benefits. You're talking about benefits that everyone gets, because it's to help with the cost of managing that you have, whether you're in work or not. But ironically makes it harder, because there could be some people, like I say, if as a result of these payments, you can get ready for work in an hour as opposed to 3 hours. So all of a sudden, without it, it's all right saying, oh, but if you don't get the points, you may not need it. It's like, okay, it might take you longer to do something, which means you cannot then get to work. So it may actually put some disabled people out of work.
Yes.
And prevent others getting into it. So it's completely against the spirit of the manifesto. And I would insist on voting against it on the basis that it is a misrepresentation of Labour, because Labour, the average member of the public, the average voter, would not have imagined that Labour would ever do something like this. Yeah. So if they were intending to, they should have made it clear before the election.
Yeah. According to internal Department for Work and Pensions forecasts, the planned disability benefit cuts would affect 700,000 families who are already in poverty. So, I mean, this is how many people signed it at the start. There were 42 MPs, but there are more MPs lining up to sign it. The problem is, at the moment, you look down the list of MPs who have signed it, and it's the usual suspects. It's Diane Abbott, it's Richard Bergen.
Yeah.
It's
it's the people who are the shittest MPs Parliament has ever seen, the ones who have never ever won a campaign in their lives. That is the problem. But just the raw numbers. At the end of the day, it actually makes no difference who the people are. The difference
I'm not saying these are bad MPs, though. I mean, Mary Foy's on this, and she's my MP. Okay, she's really good, right? Yeah. But there are some people on here, and what my worry is that the Labour lot will just say, Labour leadership will look down this list and go, it's all Corbynites because of them all.
No,
and that's why there needs to be more people
numbers.
Signing this.
No. I don't think that would be just a really childish way to look at it. It's pure numbers. are there enough Labour MPs? Because the Tories would vote against it just out of spite, right? And obviously Lib Dem, Green and SNP voters will vote for it, vote against it as well. So basically what you need is enough Labour MPs to vote against it.
Yeah.
To actually sink it. You might only need 100 Labour MPs, like 42 is nowhere near enough. If you had 100 Labour MPs who would say, not that they will abstain, that we are going to vote against it because this is a breach of voters' understanding of how we were going to govern. I would do it on that basis, not on the basis that I disagree with it, because it's not up to Labour MPs on that sort of stuff. You accept certain responsibilities for being a Labour MP or a Labour candidate, but specifically on the basis that it is contrary to voters' understanding of how Labour were going to govern. And I would do it on that basis. I would say it's totally justified to vote against it. They're not going to remove the whip from 100 MPs because then they're suddenly not even got a majority. And that would sink it. And that would force and that's what should happen. There should have been, and it should have happened straight away before Labour even announced it. So Labour MPs who are not happy with this but not doing anything about it they've not helped their own leadership because they should have sunk this before it even started. There should have been 100 MPs saying, we are going to promise you that we will vote against it.
Yeah.
And the opposition would vote against it just for the hell of it. Some of them will vote against it for better reasons, but it doesn't matter. 100 Labour MPs is all that's needed to sink anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there's a lot, because a lot of new intake? I mean, the people on that list, all of them were elected, not all of them, but most of them were elected before 2024. Do you think there's a lot of new Labour MPs who are concerned that if they do rebel against the government, then they could lose the whip, they could have...
This is the thing about strength in numbers. Labour, of all people, should understand the importance of union. They're not going to remove the whip from 100 MPs. Paul... And also, they won't go ahead with it. There will be no vote. If there's 100 MPs making it clear to the whips, not abstaining, we're going to vote against it, there will be no vote. No government deliberately holds a vote they know they're going to lose unless they are crazy. So they would actually U-turn immediately. And this is why, and that would be very damaging. That's the argument that'll go on Downing Street. But this is why those MPs should have said so while it was being discussed, while there were leaks in the papers. That's the point of leaking. That is the whole point of leaking, to get MPs to nail their colours to the mast. They should have done it before Labour. That way Labour could have U-turned without making it look like a U-turn. Yeah. Like Labour MPs, I'm not very happy with them at the moment. No, not at all.
No, the need.
Not just the leadership; they're the whole thing. They're supposed to be one big team, and they're really piss poor.
Yeah, yeah. It seems really amateur. That's where I'm bothered about it. It gets my back up. It's, like, but
it's a good wage being an MP, and they should be better.
Just a bit amateur,
I have no respect for any MP who becomes an MP without actually understanding what the job involves, because there's no excuse for it. If I can understand some elements, they can.
Paul Ewan, I don't know if I read that, the super chat, but Paul Ewan, thank you very much for the super chat. Assuming the presser address was a mistake, winky face, about them sending the journalists to the wrong address. Maggie Pie, thank you very much for the 20 Swedish krona. Drunk rats with keyboards could do Labour's comms. Well, yeah,
it'd be quite entertaining. At least it would get some headlines.
Yeah, exactly. And then Chris C, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Starmer and Reeves have chosen to go after society's most vulnerable in a delusional effort to win over some reform voters. And if anything, they're pushing people away.
Yeah, I don't think that's the reasoning. I don't think that's the reasoning.
What is the reasoning, Phil?
The reasoning is they needed the money, and it was the path of least resistance to getting it. It wasn't planned. Those cuts weren't planned. They went for it because it was the path of least resistance, and Labour MPs should have made it not the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Mr. Bull says, Phil, do you think the reason why so few MPs are standing up is because many of them are brand new, which is what I was thinking. My city's two MPs are both new and neither have stood up to the leadership's direction.
They're not supposed to be new to politics. That's my point. They shouldn't be new to politics. There can be new MPs the way I look at an MP, and this is what I always say, this is what really disillusioned me with politics when I was an adult after watching it as like a kid. I used to view MP a bit like, imagine like a consultant surgeon. You might be a brand new consultant surgeon, but you're still an experienced surgeon, right?
Yeah.
That's how an MP should be. There can be a new MP, but they should not be new to politics. And yet too many of them are.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's like, or at least they're new to Westminster politics. They might have been councillors or something, but they may not pay much attention to West. They needed to. We need MPs who have actually been interested enough in Westminster politics to have followed it in depth for many years.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not the case.
And that's, I mean, that's a failing of Labour again. But I mean, not as bad as VFOC who have had to, a bunch of their councillors have just given up because they realised they're going to have to actually do some work.
Well, there were loads of paper candidates put up. It was all like, oh, just stand for us. We need you to stand for us. And then some of them have won.
Lots of them
and have gone, but I ain't got the time for it. Yeah, I got a job.
I got better things to do than to run the bins. So yeah, but you know they're going to stop all the immigrants who are causing all the potholes. You know, all the asylum seekers causing the potholes in the streets. I'm
pretty sure it's their knuckles tracking on the ground that causes the potholes.
Hey. Chris C. Reeves has always stated that the welfare system is too generous, and she wants to reduce that if she got the chance. Thanks for
a lot of that was rhetoric, because the benefits, there's like a couple of sources of basically everything to do with the DWP is unpopular with most voters who are of working age, because if you're a worker, remember very few people relative to most working age are actually on any benefits, apart from maybe the usual ones like child benefit, which they don't think about, but you know, so a lot of working people, like for example, when the winter fuel allowance thing was announced, most people were in favour of it because most people of working age didn't get it anyway. It was only the pensioner age group that was going, no, we don't like this. And the same thing with benefits. Like for most people, all what they see to themselves is this is a public expense for which I'm paying my taxes, but I derive no benefit. Yeah. The problem with that thinking is it's a bit like, so if we just do a parallel example, so there's a sense in which Labour MPs should be worried about Reform UK, and there's a sense in which they shouldn't. The sense in which they shouldn't is that, and this was at the height of last week during the elections, according to YouGov, about 8% of Labour voters have gone to Reform UK. That is compared with also 8% going to the Green Party and 15% to Lib Dems. So there's a sense in which you should be more worried about losing votes to the Lib Dems and Greens than Reform UK. However, in some areas where Labour are very strong, they've been losing a shitload to Reform UK because that's just the national picture, but the regional picture, so they do have to worry about Reform UK. And it's the same thing here. There's a shitload of, because where are Labour likely to be strong? In areas where people need Labour to be strong. So people who are on low incomes or have, you know, if you've got populations with higher than average numbers of people with, say, disabilities or other needs that require these benefits. So although the number of people on benefits across the country is quite low, the number in a lot of Labour areas is quite high. So it's almost like it was as stupid to do this just tactically, never mind the morality, just strategically, it was as dumb to do this as it was to take away the winter fuel allowance from some people. Except the problem here is, again, they're taking it away from some people, not everyone, but they're still taking it away from enough people that it will hurt Labour electorally. It has the power to hurt Labour electorally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's utterly ridiculous. What they should be doing is taking more money if they need more money. Do what the Tories do. Take it from people in Tory areas. You know, do pork barrel politics in reverse.
Yeah, well, that's what Rishi Sunak once bragged about, didn't he? In Tunbridge Wells, of all places, he bragged about, well, you see, Labour had this funding formula, and it went into all these deprived inner city areas. But you'll never guess what? I got rid of that, and now all that money comes to us, the already rich.
Yeah,
haven't we got a really nice village?
Do it in reverse. Dump it on the Tories. Dump everything on the Tories. Every unpopular move, make sure it's the Tory areas that get dumped with it.
Well,
the ones that don't vote for you anyway.
Yeah, reform now. like all the places in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, well,
So
exactly.
that's your manor, mate. You're in trouble.
I know
aren't you?
it is, but they don't vote from here. So I would say, oh, you don't like pylons? Well, we're going to put pylons on your pylons. See how you like
Yeah.
that?
Well, I mean, Scunthorpe's in Lincolnshire, isn't it? Isn't that in
Yeah.
Lincolnshire?
Well, it's
Scunthorpe?
in. So okay. No, it's not. So,
Oh,
like the Greater Lincolnshire area that has Andrea Jenkins as mayor, that's Greater Lincolnshire, but it's split into 3 counties. So there's Lincolnshire, then there's North East Lincolnshire, which is like Grimsby, then there's North Lincolnshire, where I am, which also includes Scunthorpe. So it's not. So the Lincolnshire County Council was taken over by reform. That's not ours yet. It may be next, because that hasn't come up yet for election.
right. So that's next time it comes up.
Hopefully, I think that should. I think that's the year after next, so we should be okay. Hopefully, we will see.
Just a couple of super chats came in. We got SG saying, "Is winter fuel Labour's tuition fee moment? Will they ever recover?" Well, don't forget it was Labour who brought in the tuition fees in the first place in 1997, and they
Won 3 more times.
won another 2 elections
Or
after
2
that.
more times. Sorry,
Yeah, they won another 2 elections after that. So, I mean, if you mean tuition fee moment as in what happened to
For the Lib Dems, they may mean for the Lib Dems, yeah.
I think that's more to do with austerity more than
it is.
the tuition fees. Because you see,
Absolutely.
the reason why they brought... So Tony Blair had this idea in his head that he wanted 50% of all young people to go to university, which we've actually reached, by the way. We reached that a few years ago. And as a result of that, it meant that there wasn't enough money in the public purse to pay for all these kids to go to university for free. And university up to that point had been a very middle class thing to do. And it shut out a lot of kids from working class backgrounds. And they wanted to change that. And so that more kids from different backgrounds would get into it. So in a way, I understand why they brought in tuition fees.
They still should have done it differently.
They've done it, yeah. The implementation of it was just bloody awful. And it's something that, I would have just done you went to university, great. Okay, will you pay a little higher rate of tax over a certain amount each year?
No, I would say you haven't got enough money to have free a university education for 50% of the population. So, okay, you do this then. So you have your tuition fees, but then if you are the first person, like if neither of your parents are graduates, then it's still free and you get a grant. Or if your household is below a certain level of income and you're doing one of these sort of degrees like engineering or something like that we desperately need, then you get it for free. So so you can give free university education to some people. Just because you can't give it to, it's like an all or nothing thing, isn't it? That sort of thinking. You could do it, and that way you could actually encourage, therefore, more people to go and do degrees, particularly from poorer backgrounds, that actually pay really well, like engineering, medicine, things like that.
Yeah.
So it would have actually been a powerful driver for social mobility beyond just getting more people from working class backgrounds into university. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of people from really properly working class backgrounds, they don't, even though you can sort of explain university debt as sort of like a graduate tax, it's not, they just see it as this massive debt, and it puts a lot of people off.
Yes.
So you could have said to these people, well, you're going to go for free, we'll give you a grant. But even if like one of their parents was a graduate, say, but they were still from a fairly poor backgrounds, then you could still get it for free because your household income would be below a certain amount if you go and do one of these jobs, which, do you know what, also pays a shitload of money.
Yeah. But also another thing they could do is open the floodgates for immigrants to come here and study. We have one of the most oversubscribed university sectors in the world. We have some of the most prestigious universities in the world. And like the fact that we are not making an insane amount of coin out of that is just ridiculous. And what the Tories did, they refused to put up tuition fees. So if you're paying the tuition fees, great, because you don't have to pay more. But if you're the university and it's actually costing you more money to educate these kids, and yet you're not getting any extra money from them, from the tuition fees, you're not getting any extra money from central government. So they were bringing in more and more people from other countries to subsidise the British kids who are learning here. But then the Tories put a cap on the number of people who are allowed to come here and study. And the universities, you're looking at them going, what are you thinking?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that's because of the Tory ideology, which is just to, I don't know what the ideology is. Just
Well,
be horrible
no,
to everyone
what
all the
happened
time.
was, what happened there, and Labour have continued it, is immigration numbers skyrocketed because of Brexit, as counterintuitive as that is for some people to understand. And so then they had to do something, and they just saw university students as an easy way to do it because they're screwing over someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just thought to themselves, oh, well, that'll ease the housing problem. Oh, yes, some universities may go under, but then we'll have more houses without building any. That's what they thought.
Yeah.
That was James Cleverly, that.
Not very cleverly. Not very cleverly done, cleverly. K. Sai, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Do we not have enough parliaments where politicians can learn on a smaller scale? In Germany, loads of federal MPs were state MPs first. Yeah, loads of MPs
really.
Are councillors first, or they work in the council.
It's nothing like it, though.
But it's not. It's nothing like, yeah. But we don't have a federal system, do we?
No, we should do, because we're a federal country that does not have a federal system, and we should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that will improve. I mean, I know Labour are very keen on devolution.
Yeah.
Although if Reform are going to take everything over, that might not be.
Yeah. So, thoughts on the new Pope?
MAGA not happy.
Yay! That
MAGA
means I'm
hating
happy.
it.
That means
MAGA
I'm
absolutely
happy.
hating it.
You see Laura Loma screaming.
I've seen all of them.
Full caps lock, and she was saying, "Woke Marxist Pope."
Yeah.
He's a woke Marxist, don't you know?
It's because apparently this fella has hardly tweeted at all, and last year he put out like 5 tweets or something, and a couple of them were retweets of the then Pope Francis, and the other 3 were all attacking MAGA. Not necessarily in like an undiplomatic way, but should we say attacking some of their ideas about the order in which you're supposed to love people in Christianity, which is completely counter to the Gospels.
Yeah, that was directly against J.D. Vance, wasn't it? He claims to be a Catholic.
Yeah, well, Trump's going to have to send him out for another assassination job now, isn't he? He's got to kill another pope.
But the thing is that these people who claim, like J.D. Vance, who claim, a lot of Americans claim to be Christians, they've never read the Bible. They've never read the Bible.
But if they have, they've only done it they've done it in the same way that I've read Lord of the Rings. It's just to know some sort. They don't believe it, because at the end of the day, you can go down the 10 Commandments and they break every one, every single one.
Yeah, they do all the time. Saz, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. I just want to say about the Pope selection. I felt a tremendous sense of relief last week when in the Canadian elections, the Liberals won. And the Liberals in Canada are on the left. And I felt a tremendous sense of relief last week when in Australia the Liberals lost, because in Australia the Liberals are on the right. keep up with the back. And this is another election that's had a result that I'm kind of pleased with.
I saw someone on Blue Sky saying that Trump has now elected a left-wing government. It's now elected left-wingers in Canada, Australia, and the Vatican.
Yes, he had. For every action, there is an equal opposite reaction. It's the you're the physicist, Phil.
Yes.
So we should go on a little bit, but I just want to talk a little bit this morning, because the news has come through that the 2 reprobates who cut down the tree in the Sycamore Gap on Hadrian's Wall up here in the northeast are going to be sentenced. They've been found guilty. What do you think their sentence should be? Actually, I want to put this out to the chat as well before Phil answers. What do you think the sentence should be for these 2 wells?
You've already told me what you think it should be, and I wholeheartedly agree. But what I'll just say, if you want then a serious answer, not prison, if anyone's going for that. In fact, it's quite interesting, because earlier this week, James Timpson, the prisons minister, was talking about like his policy on it being pointless and actually counterproductive, sending people for prison for certain things. Something like that. It's not violence against a person, and they're not likely to do it again, apart from anything else. The tree's gone. But this is a classic case of you should give them a punishment that fits and is keeps them in the community. This is not a prison issue.
Yeah.
But your idea isn't prison anyway, so.
No, my idea is they have to plant 1 million trees each. That's it. That's their punishment. They'll spend the rest of their lives every day from dawn till dusk, planting trees until they're like in their 80s. That's what I'd like, Phil. That's what I'd like. Yeah. We've got 1,000 hours planting trees. Graham agrees with me there. Community service of 300. I think you're way too low there. I think it should be way more than that. Imagine like they have to plant a forest each. That is what they've got to do. They've got to put 1,000 sycamores all the way along Hadrian's Wall. Maybe we should have a wealth tax instead of kicking someone in a wheelchair. This is information to me. As I see who now funds the Labour Party since the members have left, says Captain Coconut. I mean, none of us are particularly keen on these stupid ideas that Labour seem to have come out with. 1,000 hours of forestry work. Why is everyone going so low? Just go for 1 million. 1 million hours. Planting trees. What's a million hours?
Take an hour to plant a tree.
No, but 1 million hours.
You've got 1 million hours in your life.
Yes, you have. It's 32 years, isn't it?
Yeah, but they haven't.
Or is that 1 million
like
minutes?
In his 60s.
Is it? No, there's one who's like... No, there's one in his 30s.
One of them was young. I thought one was in their 60s.
No, I don't think they were that old. Million... Right,
it doesn't take an hour to plant a tree.
Okay,
either.
So how long does it take to plant a tree? Let's say 5 minutes.
You put a stick in the ground and then you put a bloody seed in.
Okay, how many... Okay, hang on. How many days? Days 1 million hours.
I mean, you could say they have to then keep coming back, and when it's like a sapling, they have to like splint it. You know, they put that stick in the ground next to it and lash it to it. Which actually, my wife did when she first moved into this house. She had a tree, and unfortunately, she's tortured it now. She loves the tree, but she tortured it. But she never took the stick off. So now the rubber band in it is stuck in the tree and it pokes out.
Oh. Well, apparently it's 41,666 days. So how many? We can do 4 in an hour. Sorry, we just disconnected for some reason. Say we can do 4 in an hour, right? So that is 114.
It doesn't have to be a million, Graham. Your point is you're going to make them plant trees for years. I don't think you should get fixated on this. 25
years, they could do it. 1 million trees, 25 years.
Okay.
That's all they need to do.
All right.
And that would be about 8 an hour for a 12-hour day. Okay. 25 years. That should be their job. That's 2 trees at a time. I'll have them picking up leaves every autumn for the next 10 years. Says
no, the leaves are fine. The leaves are good. We shouldn't clean leaves up. They're part of the cycle of life.
Story Tiller, because Teller was taken 02, says 100 years community service lathing logs with their teeth like beavers.
I think
make them live up a tree for a year.
Human rights might enter into that one.
Make them live up a tree for a year. I like that. Since Sycamore Gap was in Robin Hood, plant enough trees to get to Sherwood Forest since it was 1066. Yep, sounds like a plan. It would be interesting to see if any punishment is issued to Weatherspoon for felling a protected oak tree. It wasn't yet Weatherspoons. It wasn't Weatherspoons. It was some steakhouse or something. What was it? In London, they cut down a tree. They cut down a protected oak tree. It was a franchise.
See, this is, I mean, sometimes there have been, judges have actually, like, do you remember one time where they did something to a pub and they were ordered to, like, rebuild it brick by brick?
Something
like that,
pub, wasn't it? The one in Birmingham.
So that was a case of a judge going, you're just going to literally repair the damage you've done.
Yeah, but you can't do that with a tree that's 150 years old.
Not really, no.
And they were asking this morning on the radio, like, why did people care so much? Most people hadn't heard of this tree before it got knocked down. I'm like, most people hadn't heard of a murder victim until they get murdered. It's not like you go, oh, well, I've never heard of it.
Well, also, sometimes people in the local area do.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to Sherwood Forest, the major oak, I mean, they're propping it up, for goodness sake. It should have been allowed to, it's basically dead. It's not actually dead, but they should have just allowed it to die a long time ago. But because it's this big cultural thing in Nottinghamshire, they prop it up. You can't go near it now. It's all cordoned off. When my dad was a kid, apparently you could go right up to it. Can't anymore. Yeah. But that is the power of a cultural icon. People want to keep it going. So the last thing you're supposed to do is take an axe to it. It's not about the tree. You've pissed off people.
Yeah. Now, you see, what I would do if I had a tabloid, I'd love to have a tabloid. I'd have so much fun with this. I would have as my front cover tomorrow, reform voting duo found guilty of chopping down the tree. Every time someone did something horrible, I just assume they voted for reform because you know what? 99 times out of 100, you'll be right.
Yeah, if they voted at all.
Yeah, and just make it like, they're the people that, the horrible people. That's who vote. That's who vote for that.
Sorry, I'm just going to pick out something here again. We won't keep going on about this, but Sarragan there, Starmer would boost his approval if he takes a stand on Israel's despicable treatment of Palestine. Did you not listen to me when I said the British government have this week been arguing in the International Court of Justice that Israel is committing crimes against humanity? He already has done. What you're saying is you're not paying attention to the news, so you're not aware of it.
I think that's a bit unfair, Phil, because the news hasn't been reporting on this.
I know about it.
You know about it because you live and breathe politics. Most people don't.
No, that's their own fault then. If you want to, if you imagine that this is a key issue for this. No, Labour aren't going to tell people because there's a lot of people in the country are, don't imagine everyone's on one particular side. There's so many people, we had this in the last week, when Labour did badly as well as the Conservatives in the local elections. And it's like, oh, it was because of this thing that I believe in. No, it wasn't. Unless not a single comment piece I've read on, oh, this is why, and you get it every election, this is why Party X did so badly. They should listen to me. Every single comment piece, not a single one ever references data. So they don't know. They're just making it up. Everyone does it all the time. If a party does something that they disapprove of, every time they do badly, oh, it's because of this. And then they completely ignore it when they do well. Or they downplay it. So it's the same thing here. If people think an issue is important, it's beholden upon you to make sure you understand what's going on and not just listening to a particular source that happens to feed your prejudice. You have to look at all sources. I spend a ridiculous amount of money paying right-wing media organisations just so I can read their scabby articles so that I know what they're saying.
Do you know there's ways around that so you don't have to give them?
Yeah, but that's illegal. I'm honest.
But you're giving monsters money, Phil. You're giving monsters money.
I
don't need your money. They're billionaires.
It doesn't matter. It's illegal. I don't steal.
Fozy wants to know if you could start an argument in an empty room.
No, that's Kemi Badnock that does that. I have to have a person.
I
did once have an argument with the dog, but he was a raging hypocrite, to be fair.
Yeah. I understand that there is rules of diplomacy, and they can't just run around calling Trump a gobshite and saying that Netanyahu is a war criminal, even though he is. But at the same time, the response to what's been happening in Gaza does feel muted. It doesn't feel.
There is no arms transfer either. There is no. That was blocked. It doesn't matter how many times people say, "Oh, this company got an engine." Yeah, okay, it's easy to get that. Like we've blocked exports to Russia, but they're still getting our stuff because you know what they do? Another company in another country buys it and then they pass it on.
Yeah,
you can't stop that.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't it a good thing to at least make a stand and say, instead of going, oh well, people are going to murder anyway, so what's the point of having?
No, it's not that. But you're blaming the wrong people. It's like Netanyahu's committing atrocities. Let's blame fucking Starmer.
Yeah.
And you say disrespectfully needs to do more. What more can he do? You're saying he should do this, that, and the other, and he's already doing it. So you're not even giving him credit for what he is doing. He should take a stand. They've sent lawyers to the International Court of Justice. What more can they do? They've applied blocks to exports. Oh, Israel's still getting some stuff because it's been bought by someone else and they're passing it on.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do? We haven't got any power in this. America are the ones supplying them with weapons. They are the ones who should stop this. And again, I'll point out the people in America, and I hope this didn't make any difference. I really hope this didn't make a difference. But all those people in America who had the same attitude and attacked Biden and Harris, and there were good reasons to attack them, by the way, but they did so in a way that encouraged people to not vote for Harris. As a direct result of, and I hope that there weren't enough people that did that to make a difference, but as a direct result of Trump winning, Gaza may now not exist in a few months' time because the Israeli government have openly said they wish to destroy it as a direct result of Trump becoming president.
Okay.
Now, again, it's Netanyahu's fault directly, not Trump's. But if anyone who didn't vote for Harris on that basis knew, because in America it really is between two people, they knew that they were helping Trump.
Yeah.
And I just hope they can live with them.
I agree with that. However, Saragon, I think, makes a good point. We still haven't recognised the state of Palestine.
That may be changing.
We have recognised the state of Kosovo for like 25 years now. And the fact that we don't recognise Palestine, which should have been recognised from the very get-go, should have been recognised from the absolute start on all this.
Different people have had different views on that, but I agree that we now should, and there is talk that we may do this summer.
I mean, there's even Conservatives saying that we should do that.
Oh, yeah. But there's also plenty in Labour saying it.
Yeah.
But
when we talk about like Labour could do more, and you're saying, we couldn't do any more. Well, clearly they could, because they could recognise the state of Palestine.
Yeah, we could, but that also, like, is anyone seriously saying that if we do this with France, because France are certainly talking about it, but they want to do it with others as well.
Yes.
This summer, is it June? I can't remember when the summit is. There's a summit. Are people serious? Because the same people saying this are the same people who said, if you call for a ceasefire, then there'll be a ceasefire. And it's like, so, I mean, they were anyway, they were just using different language, but then they used the word ceasefire.
Phil, that was like,
is this going to change it?
This has been going on for decades.
Is this, The
two-state solution is not like a new thing that's just appeared now. And you can't have a two-state solution unless we regard the fact that there's two states. That's the very first step on the way.
What I'm saying to you is, if we do this, as there's serious discussions going on about whether we do it. If we do it, is it going to make a difference?
Yes.
How?
Because if we do it with other countries, if we do it with France and other countries, Palestine at the moment doesn't get the same international recognition, but it's also international law. Certain things in international law don't apply to it because it's not a nation state. And so Israel gets away with doing some crazy fucking shit that they wouldn't be allowed to do if it was its own recognised sovereign entity.
And I also appreciate the importance of two permanent members of the Security Council recognising it.
Yeah.
But America still won't.
Yeah, but I mean, I was talking on the show the other day about reforming the United Nations. Once Trump is gone, and everything needs to be rebuilt, the United Nations would be a good place to start.
Yes. My worry is, as soon as you have actually displaced a people from a land and it's filled up with other people and you've left it that way for some years, you then can't put them back without displacing the people who are now there, which is also genocide. That's ultimately the problem with Zionism and anti-Zionism now. In the 1950s, I would have been anti-Zionist because you were talking about displacing a load of Arab people from their land. Whereas now, anti-Zionism doesn't have to mean the forced displacement of Israelis, but it does mean that the Israeli state doesn't exist. So how do you do that? Once people have settled somewhere and they've been settled somewhere, you can't just force them out because that's genocide.
I think that's another. That's a
you
whole
have to stop it happening.
I'm not advocating for the complete,
No, I know that.
destruction
what I'm
of
saying
Israel
is,
and the.
if they destroy Gaza this year, and Trump just because Trump disappears doesn't mean to say that MAGA don't stay in control for some time. Like, America could still be really badly gone, and I know public opinion in America is very much shifted towards the Palestinians, but that doesn't necessarily mean key voters are. Again, they have a first past the post system, so general population opinion polls don't necessarily translate into political power. How long is it going to be before America realistically has a government that is prepared to do something, and will it be too late? Now, I am in favour of the UK recognising Palestine. Yes. Because at the end of the day, you might as well do it while it still exists.
Well, exactly.
Because we've always
had two parts to Palestine. There's the West Bank as well.
Yeah.
So you say, this is what we recognise. It's the Gaza Strip. It is the West Bank. Before Israel start rolling in.
To be fair to Labour, they have been very consistently right, from the get-go, in attacking the attacks on people in the West Bank by settlers.
Yeah, but they didn't call for a ceasefire from the start. They called for a, what was it?
Humanitarian pause. It means the same.
I know it means the same thing, but come on.
Yeah, I know. I know. In hindsight, absolutely, they were trying to avoid. They would. I know, but they were trying to avoid being seen to be on the same side as the obvious anti-Semites.
Did you ever watch the life and the rise and fall of Reginald Perrin, or the fall and rise of Reginald Perrin? Yeah. Do you remember when he had his shop called Grot, and he got like and he was trying to lose? It was about like Brewster's Millions. He was trying to lose all his money. Yeah. And he got in an advertiser who was just absolutely dreadful and came up with these really wordy slogans that didn't make any sense, and people absolutely loved it because it was like nothing they'd seen before. Yeah. I think that's what Labour do. But like no one loves it. They're just like, you just can't get a coherent.
No, they got it wrong.
And this is not new for Starmer. I think the last lot did this as well, especially when I got screamed at in the 2019 election to read the manifesto, Graham. Read them. And I'm like, I've got like a million better things to do than to read a party's manifesto. I'm sorry. I know I run a politics channel and I possibly should, but I'll read the Cliff Notes. That's about it. Captain Coconut, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. I really like it when you two get together, primarily because you're not aligned directly on some issues. This allows some excellent banter over policy. Well, there you go. Some people like it when we argue. Some people don't. We need Phil and Graham playing Marvel Rivals on stream.
I'm playing Oblivion at the moment.
Any good?
Yes, it's his. I keep starting a new character though.
Have you played Last of Us? Did you play The Last of Us when that came out?
I play very few games.
The TV show that is it's good as far as zombie apocalypse films, TV shows, whatever, are good.
I don't watch TV either.
Oh, you should be watching Andor, mate.
No, I'm not watching any TV. I don't like TV.
Fantastic.
I have to put my headphones on when my wife watches TV.
It's the best bit. It's the best bit of Star Wars, I would say, since Empire Strikes Back.
No, because the best bit of Star Wars, including with Empire Strikes Back, was the scene at the end of Rogue One with Vader.
Yeah, but this is the lead up to that scene.
It might well be, but I just can't stand. Honestly, I can't stand watching TV. I don't even watch sport on TV anymore. Just something about TV over the years. I used to watch a lot of it, and now it grates on me. It's like nails on a blackboard.
What, like any kind of scripted drama or anything like that? So
any
you haven't seen
television. If I watch something on a television that's not a DVD.
What if people are watching this on the TV? Is that all right?
Yeah, people do. I'm not saying that people who watch TV are bad. I'm not like Kemi Badenoch just because she don't like sandwiches, they're not real. What I'm saying is I don't like television.
Brett Wall is asking what episode I'm up to. Episode 9. So, yeah, 3 more to go, which come out on Wednesday. We're talking about Andor here. And then I'm really hoping to do a sit-down talk with Abby Heffer, who is studying PhD in authoritarian regimes. If you're not following her on TikTok, I really would recommend. And we're going to be talking about the politics of Andor and how rebellions start and the mistakes that they make. And what I like about Andor is it's very, very realistic. In the first few episodes of this season, there's a group of rebels who, and all they do, Phil, is fight amongst themselves. They don't fight the Empire. They're too busy arguing amongst themselves to actually... And you're like, oh my... And then there's another group, and they're being played into rebelling by the authorities. The authorities want them to rebel because then that gives them a pretext to get them all out of the way, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but like, you're watching it and you're watching these people walking into this trap, eyes open and going, no, it's important that we make a stand. And you're like, yes, but maybe not today. Maybe not like this. Because obviously they're being infiltrated by the Empire. Did you like at the end of 6 where the leads got their revenge on the torturer? I haven't seen it, but didn't want to drop the plot. No spoilers. There was no lead up to that scene though, so we'll have to talk about it once it's all done, and we can have a big spoiler-free or spoilery episode on it, and where people who are up to date can watch it and not have any spoilers. But yeah, me and Abby are going to talk about this and talk about how it reflects the rebellions that we have going on right now against Trump, against Starmer in Labour, against modern life. Modern life is rubbish, Phil.
It's because what happens is it's really quite simple. People try to have this 100-point list of things they demand instead of one.
Yeah.
See, the more things you demand, the more niche your fellow co-conspirators are. So, I mean, the thing I always say, learn the lesson from the Brexiteers. They were like this. They were arguing like rats in a sack. And we've seen those divisions this week. You've got a load of Tory Brexiteers who were delighted with the India trade deal, quite a few of them perfectly happy with the US trade deal. And then you've got a load of sort of more Farage-aligned Brexiteers who absolutely hate both of them.
Yeah.
Because that has split them along the racist Brexit and, standards. Because there's a load of Tory Brexiteers, the appeal for them was not having to follow high standards. They're all like free market nut jobs, right? So it's... But that's what they were like for many years. They were all squabbling with each other. Then they decided, look, we don't agree on what should come after Brexit, but we all agree that we should leave the EU. So they all just then took that. And if you ask them what would happen after Brexit, that's why they all trotted out all these different groups looked like the same group because they all trotted out the same lines about, of course, we're not going to leave the single market, stuff like, because some of them wanted to stay in the single market and some of them didn't. So they all just trotted out these lines.
Yeah.
And then they split up again after it. And people should do the same thing. It's like, instead of having 100 demands, have one demand. If you have one demand, you'll find a load of people who also agree with that and then work together on that. And it doesn't stop you working with other groups on some of your other issues. But when you find a group that is working towards a thing, whether it be electoral reform or media reform or whatever it happens to be, don't then try and get them, oh, do you know what we should also do? We should also demand these other 99 things. Because you'll just split everyone up.
Yeah.
Focus on one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Phil. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Let everyone get on with their Friday afternoon since it's quite sunny. Is it sunny where you are, Phil?
Yes, that's why people have got chainsaws out.
Bastards.
It's what they do. Every time it's sunny, some wanker goes out with a chainsaw and tries to disrupt
cuts down a tree.
I don't know what they're doing something with it. They're doing something with it.
Planted a million trees. That was me
I
the other
assume
week.
that's what they're doing. That's why they do it every year. They must be growing new trees to chop them down the next year.
I see. Okay. Well, this was one tree that it was already cut down, but the tree stump was about like 3 meters high. So I've got it down to about 1 meter now. Right. With an electric chainsaw. And electric chainsaws are shite. If you are going to use a chainsaw, really, really recommend you use one with a little, pull string, gasolina. But yes, so thank you very much to Phil for joining us this afternoon and chatting about politics and that and what Labour have been up to this week and just, oh my God. Anyway, and also thanks very much to everyone who has dropped a wonderful chat in here and also the super chats. Really appreciate that. I will be back at 9:30 tonight, but before you go, if you would just like to give us a like, that really, really helps the channel. So thank you for doing that. And that's it. Until next time, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.